Picture this. A 21-year-old kid builds a VR headset in his parents' garage. 2 years later, Facebook hands him $700 million. It should feel amazing, right? Instead, he gets sued, dragged online, and forced out of his own company. A guy making 36 grand a year throws his life savings into a meme coin. $3 million later, his own fans turn on him. A man wins $2 billion on a lottery ticket. He has to go into hiding. Here's the question nobody asks: why do we love stories about getting rich, but the second it actually happens to someone fast, we assume they cheated? Today I'm breaking down the psychology behind this. And by the end, you'll understand something most people never figure out: your brain is basically wired to hate fast success, even when it's completely legitimate. Let's get into it. So here's something wild. In the US, the top 1% own roughly half the country's wealth. That's a massive, multi-generational concentration of money. And yet society barely blinks at it. But the moment someone makes a fortune in months instead of decades, the reaction is completely different: suspicion, outrage, accusations of cheating. Why? Because it's not actually about how much money someone has. It's about how long it took them to get it. Slow wealth, decades of saving, a steady career, real estate that appreciates over 30 years, that gets treated as virtue. Fast wealth, even if it's earned through real skill or smart risk, gets treated as theft. That's the core paradox we're unpacking today. Now that you see the pattern, the real question is, what's actually happening in our heads when we judge someone like this? Think about it from an evolutionary angle. Humans evolved in small tribes where resources were limited and visible. If someone suddenly had way more than everyone else, there was usually a simple explanation: they stole it, hoarded it, or exploited someone. That wiring never left us. So when we see someone get rich fast today, with no visible proof of labor we can point to, our brain panics a little. It can't trace a fair path from effort to reward, so it fills in the blank with the most likely ancient explanation: they must have cheated. There's actually an economic experiment that proves this. In something called the dictator game, when people earn their money through effort, they feel entitled to keep it, and other people accept that. But when the money is handed to them randomly, people expect them to share it, and judge them harshly if they don't. Sudden wealth gets mentally filed under random and unearned, even when it isn't. And once it's filed there, society strips away the usual respect we give to private property. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Psychologist Melvin Lerner discovered something called the just world hypothesis back in the 1960s. Basically, humans desperately need to believe the world is fair. That people get what they deserve. In his experiments, when people heard about someone winning the lottery, they actually convinced themselves the winner must have worked harder or had better character. Not because it was true, but because their brain needed an explanation that kept the world feeling orderly. But when wealth is too obviously disproportionate to any reasonable effort, like a 19-year-old becoming a billionaire overnight, the brain can't stretch the "they deserved it" story far enough. So it flips to the opposite conclusion: it must be illegitimate. Either way, the goal is the same: protect the belief that the world makes sense. Now, here's the part that explains the anger you've probably felt yourself watching someone get rich overnight. Imagine you've worked a demanding job for 20 years. Then you watch some 25-year-old turn a meme coin into millions in 3 months. Your brain holds two conflicting thoughts at once: I've sacrificed decades for a modest life, and this person did way better with almost no effort. That tension is uncomfortable. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. And since you can't undo your own past sacrifices, your brain does the next best thing: it devalues their success. It's just luck. It's not real wealth. They'll lose it all anyway. That's not bitterness for no reason. That's your mind protecting the belief that your own hard work actually meant something. So now you might be thinking, okay, but some of these people did earn it. And that's true. But here's the part almost nobody talks about: statistically, sudden wealth is incredibly rare, and overwhelmingly driven by luck, not skill. Less than 0.5% of startups even raise venture funding, and the vast majority of those still fail. Day traders. Up to 99% lose money over time. Most influencers make under $15,000 a year. Powerball odds are literally 1 in 292 million. There was even a fascinating study where researchers simulated 1,000 people with talent randomly distributed, just like in real life, over a simulated 40-year career, with random lucky and unlucky events sprinkled in. The most talented people almost never ended up the richest. The richest people were usually average talent individuals who got hit with an unusually high number of lucky breaks. In other words, the cheating instinct your brain has. It's actually closer to the truth than the meritocracy myth most of us were raised on. And here's the twist that makes this whole topic even more ironic: getting rich fast often doesn't even make people happier. There's a real psychological condition called sudden wealth syndrome, isolation, paranoia, guilt, identity crisis. It happens because humans adapt to change gradually. Slow wealth lets you adjust your habits, relationships, and self-image step by step. Sudden wealth rips that process away overnight, and people often aren't equipped to handle it. So the very thing we envy and resent, fast money, frequently turns into a genuinely difficult experience for the person living it. So now you understand why getting rich fast triggers that instinctive, they must have cheated, reaction. It's not random hostility, it's your brain's ancient fairness system trying to protect your own sense of meaning. But here's the question that naturally follows: if hard work and slow saving doesn't guarantee wealth either, with inflation, stagnant wages, and rising costs eating away at people's progress, then what actually does work in today's economy? That's exactly what I break down in this next video, where I go through what's actually changed about building wealth in the last 10 years, and what's quietly still working for people who aren't relying on luck. Go check that one out next.